I spent 7 years mourning someone who was never actually gone. I'm Dottie Henderson. Every day I bake pies with aching hands to fund my granddaughter's future and honor my daughter Sarah's memory. I sent nearly $300,000 to my son-in-law, believing my daughter was turned to ash. But after a terrifying whisper from a child, I opened the funeral urn on my mantle, only to find it filled with grocery store coffee and cinnamon. This is my story of intuition, a staggering betrayal, and my fight to bring a ghost back to life. Let's get into it. Comment your city below, stay until the end, and make sure to like and subscribe.
The cherry pies always came out best on Mondays. Dottie Henderson had been telling herself that lie for 7 years now, ever since the 12th of every month became the day she'd rather forget. Her hands, swollen at the knuckles from arthritis that had been creeping in like an unwelcome house guest, moved through the familiar motions. Cold butter, flour sifted twice, ice water added 1 tablespoon at a time. The dough had to be perfect. Sarah had always said so. "Mom, you can't rush pie crust. It'll know if you're impatient." The voice in Dottie's head was so clear she sometimes forgot Sarah wasn't standing right there in the kitchen doorway, flour dusted on her nose like she used to get when she was 12. But Sarah wasn't 12 anymore. Sarah wasn't anything anymore. Or so Dottie had believed for 2,556 days. "Morning, Dottie." The bell above the bakery door chimed as Margaret Chen, damn it, wrong name, as Margaret Walsh came in, shaking rain off her umbrella. "Smells like heaven in here, as always." "Morning, Maggie." Dottie wiped her hands on her apron, the one with Dottie's pies embroidered in fading blue thread. "Your usual?" "You know it. 1 apple, 1 pecan for Bill. Man won't eat anything else for breakfast." Margaret laughed, that comfortable laugh of someone whose biggest worry was her husband's sweet tooth. Dottie wished she could remember what that felt like. She boxed up the pies, tied them with the signature yellow ribbon, and handed them across the counter. Through the window behind Margaret, Dottie could see her own house across the street. A small craftsman cottage with white trim and a porch that needed painting. On the mantel above the fireplace, visible even from here, sat the copper urn. "You doing okay, hun?" Margaret's voice softened. "I know what day it is. I'm fine." The lie came easy now, smooth as the butter she'd just cut into the dough. Keeping busy helps. Margaret squeezed her hand, that thing people do when they don't know what else to offer, and left with another jingle of the bell. Dottie looked at the clock. 7:47 a.m. In 13 minutes, if she kept to her schedule, she'd finish the lattice top on Sarah's cherry pie. She'd let it cool for exactly 1 hour. Then she'd carry it across the street, set it on the coffee table in front of the urn, and talk to her daughter like she'd done 84 times before. The therapist Kyle had recommended, Dr. Stevens, a kind woman with too many plants in her office, said it was healthy. Continuing bonds, she'd called it, a way to process grief without letting go entirely. Kyle had been so thoughtful about that. About everything, really. "Dottie, I know this is hard, but talking to Sarah, I do it too, every night before bed. I think it helps her rest easier, you know, wherever she is." Dottie's hand stilled on the rolling pin. Wherever she is. The urn sat on the mantel because Kyle said Sarah had wanted to be cremated. "She told me once after her dad passed, she said she didn't want to be buried in the cold ground like he was. She wanted to be free." Dottie had never heard Sarah say that. But grief makes memory fuzzy, doesn't it? And Kyle had been so sure, so gentle when he'd handled everything. The death certificate, the cremation paperwork, the small private ceremony that Dottie had been too sedated to attend. "It's better this way, Dottie. Just me and Emma. You need to rest. Doctor's orders." She'd woken up 3 days later to find the urn already on her mantel, Kyle sitting beside it with Emma on his lap, both of them crying softly. He'd been a good son-in-law. Still was, technically. He came by every Sunday with Emma, never missed a birthday or holiday. And every January, like clockwork, he'd call. "Dottie, I've been thinking. The life insurance money. I know you want to help with Emma's future. How about $40,000 this year? I'm setting up a college fund, and you know Sarah would want her to have the best." $40,000. Every year. For 7 years. $280,000 to honor her daughter's memory and secure her granddaughter's future. It was worth every hour she'd spent kneading dough with aching hands, every early morning, every late night balancing the books. The timer dinged. Dottie slid the pie into the oven and set it for 45 minutes. Through the window, the urn caught the morning light. Something twisted in Dottie's chest. Something that had been twisting there since last Wednesday, when Emma had come into the bakery after school and sat at the corner table without saying a word for 20 minutes. That wasn't like Emma. The girl was quiet, sure, had been since Sarah's death, but she usually at least asked for a cookie or helped Dottie clean the mixing bowls. Last Wednesday, Emma had just sat there, staring at her backpack like it contained something terrible. And when Dottie had finally asked, "Baby, what's wrong?" Emma had looked up with eyes so full of fear that Dottie's breath caught. "Grandma, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Anything." Emma had opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then Kyle's truck had pulled up outside, horn honking twice, and Emma had grabbed her backpack and run out without another word. Dottie hadn't slept well since. The afternoon rain came down in sheets, turning Willow Creek's Main Street into a blur of gray. Dottie had just finished cleaning the counters when the bell chimed again. Emma stood in the doorway, soaked through despite her yellow raincoat. Her blonde hair, so much like Sarah's it sometimes hurt to look at, was plastered to her face. She was clutching her backpack to her chest like a shield. "Emma! Honey, you're drenched. Where's your dad?" He's at work. I walked." Emma's voice was barely above a whisper. "Walked? Baby, that's 2 miles in this weather. Come here. Let's get you dried off." Dottie grabbed a clean kitchen towel and guided Emma to the back room, where she kept a space heater for the cold Oregon winters. Emma sat on the old stool by the prep counter, shivering. Not from cold, Dottie realized. From something else. "I'll make you some hot chocolate, okay? The real kind with the—" "Grandma, I need to tell you something." Emma's voice cracked. "And you're going to be really mad at me." Dottie's hand stilled on the cocoa tin. "Sweetheart, I could never be mad at you. What's going on?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain hammering against the window and the hum of the space heater. Then Emma reached into her backpack and pulled out a small Ziploc bag. Inside was a teaspoon of grayish powder. "I took this," Emma whispered, "from the urn, from the urn that's supposed to have Mom in it." The room tilted. Dottie gripped the counter. What are you talking about?" "I'm so sorry, Grandma. I didn't mean to. Last month when I was at your house and you went to answer the door, I was looking at the urn and I opened it. Just to see. Just to feel close to Mom." The words tumbled out in a rush. "And it didn't look right. The stuff inside. It wasn't what I thought ashes would look like." Dottie couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "So I took a little bit, just a pinch, and I've been trying to figure out what it is." Emma's hands shook as she held out the bag. "Grandma, I'm not crazy. I swear I'm not. But this stuff, it smells like coffee and cinnamon." The words hung in the air between them. Coffee, cinnamon, not ash, not bone, not Sarah. "Let me see that." Dottie's voice didn't sound like her own. Emma handed over the bag with trembling fingers. Dottie opened it, and the scent hit her immediately, that cheap, slightly burnt smell of Folger's ground coffee. And underneath it, the warm, sweet note of McCormick cinnamon. The kind you could buy at any grocery store for $3.99. Not the remains of her daughter. The bag slipped from Dottie's fingers. She had to sit down. Emma's arms wrapped around her waist. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. Dad always said we shouldn't bother you with stuff, that you're still healing. But I couldn't keep lying to you." "Lying?" Dottie's voice came out hoarse. "What do you mean, lying?" Emma pulled back, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "Not lying. I didn't tell you, and that felt like lying." Dottie looked at the girl, this beautiful, brave 14-year-old who'd just carried a weight no child should carry, and something fierce ignited in her chest. "Emma Louise Abbott, you listen to me." Dottie cupped her granddaughter's face in her flour-dusted hands. "You are not the one who lied. You understand me? You're the one telling the truth. And that takes more courage than anything else in this world." Emma's lower lip quivered. "But if Mom's not in the urn, where is she?" That was the question, wasn't it? Dottie stood, her knees protesting, and walked to the window. Across the street, through the rain, she could see the urn on her mantel. It sat there like it had for 7 years, reflecting the lamplight, looking so official with its engraved nameplate. Sarah Marie Henderson Abbott, 1986 to 2018. Beloved daughter, loving mother. I don't know, baby, Dottie said quietly, but I'm damn sure gonna find out. Dottie waited until Emma's breathing evened out in the guest bedroom upstairs before she crossed the street to her own house. She'd called Kyle and left a voicemail. Emma's staying with me tonight. She wasn't feeling well. Don't worry, I've got her. Knowing full well he wouldn't call back until morning. He never did on his poker nights. The house was dark except for the lamp by the mantel. Dottie had left it on before heading to the bakery that morning, like always. She never wanted Sarah to wake up in the dark. Except Sarah wasn't there to wake up, was she? Dottie stood in front of the urn. It was surprisingly heavy. She remembered that from the day Kyle had first placed it there. Dottie, let me help you. We need to position it just right. Somewhere Sarah can see the whole room. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. What am I doing? She thought. This is desecration. This is wrong. What if Emma's mistaken? What if it's just old ashes that have broken down weird? But she knew. Deep in her gut, in that place where mothers know things about their children even when the world says otherwise, she knew. The lid unscrewed easily. Too easily, like it had been opened before. Dottie looked inside. The powder was grayish-brown, coarse in some places, fine in others. Nothing like the cremated remains she'd seen at her husband's funeral 10 years ago. Those had been pure white, almost dusty, with small fragments of bone. This was just stuff. She pinched some between her fingers, brought it to her nose. Coffee. Definitely coffee. The cheap kind from a big plastic canister. And cinnamon. The grocery store kind, probably not even real cinnamon. Cassia, most likely. Dottie's legs gave out. She sank onto the hardwood floor, the urn still clutched in her hands, and for the first time in 7 years, she let herself ask the question she'd been too afraid to voice. What if Sarah never died at all? The thought was insane, impossible. There was a death certificate. There'd been a funeral. Small, yes, but real. The obituary had run in the Willow Creek Gazette. Kyle had shown her photos of the cremation facility in Portland. But Kyle had also shown her this urn, had placed it in her hands and said, "This is Sarah now. This is all we have left." And she'd believed him. Because why wouldn't she? Kyle was family. He was Emma's father. He'd been married to Sarah for 10 years. He'd cried at the funeral. He'd held Dottie when she sobbed. He'd taken care of everything when she was too broken to function. He'd been the perfect son-in-law. Dottie looked at the urn again. Really looked at it. The engraving was professional. The copper was high quality. But underneath, near the base, was a small sticker she'd never noticed before. Memorial Craft Limited, $89.99. $89.99. For her daughter's final resting place. Dottie set the urn down carefully on the coffee table. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, calm, because beneath the shock and the horror and the grief was something else now. Rage. If this urn was fake, if Kyle had given her coffee and cinnamon and lied about Sarah's death, then where the hell was her daughter? She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she needed. Tom Bailey. Sheriff Tom Bailey now, but he'd always be Tommy to her, the kid who used to sneak cookies from her kitchen when he and her late husband went fishing. The phone rang 3 times before his gravelly voice answered. "Dottie? It's almost 11. Everything okay?" "Tom, I need you to come to my house. Right now." "What's wrong? Are you hurt? Is it Emma?" "No. Yes. I don't know." Dottie looked at the urn. "Tom, I think Kyle's been lying to me. About Sarah." A pause. Then, "I'm on my way. Don't touch anything." Tom Bailey pulled up 15 minutes later in his personal truck, not the cruiser. Smart man. Didn't want the whole town talking by morning. He was graying now, Dottie noticed as she let him in. Lines around his eyes that hadn't been there a decade ago. But he still had that same solid, steady presence that had made her husband trust him with his life. "Okay, Dottie. Talk to me." He took off his rain-soaked jacket and hung it by the door, his eyes already scanning the room like the cop he was. Dottie handed him the Ziploc bag Emma had brought. "Smell this." Tom opened it, sniffed, and his eyebrows shot up. "That's coffee. And is that cinnamon?" That's what I thought too. Where'd you get it? From that. Dottie pointed to the urn. Tom went very still. From Sarah's urn. Supposed to be Sarah's urn. Dottie's voice was flat, controlled. If she let the emotion in now, she'd fall apart, and she couldn't afford that. Emma took a sample last month. She's been scared to tell me. Finally worked up the courage today. Tom walked to the mantel and looked at the urn without touching it. You're saying Kyle gave you an urn full of coffee grounds instead of your daughter's ashes? That's exactly what I'm saying. Dottie, Tom rubbed his face. You know how this sounds, right? I have to ask, is there any chance Emma's just, I don't know, confused? Maybe there was some kind of mix-up at the crematorium? You think I haven't thought of that? Dottie's voice sharpened. You think my first instinct wasn't to find some rational explanation? But Tom, I've been thinking about it all night. 7 years ago when Sarah died, Kyle handled everything. Everything. I never saw her body. I never went to the crematorium. Hell, I never even saw the death certificate. Kyle said he'd filed it with his lawyer for the estate paperwork. Tom pulled out his phone and started typing notes. What about the funeral? There wasn't one, not really. Kyle said Sarah wanted something small, private, just him and Emma. He said I was too medicated to attend. And I was. I'll admit that. Doc Stevens had me on some heavy stuff after I got the news. Who was the attending physician? Who signed the death certificate? Dr. Alan Pierce. He's retired now. Lives down in Medford, I think. Tom's fingers moved across his phone screen. I can pull the death certificate tomorrow from county records. See if there's anything off about it. And if there's not? Dottie heard the tremor in her voice now. What if the death certificate is real, and I'm just a crazy old woman who's been sniffing coffee grounds and seeing conspiracies? Tom looked at her, really looked at her, and his voice gentled. Dottie, I've known you for 40 years. You're a lot of things, but crazy ain't one of them. If you say something's wrong, something's wrong. Now let me do my job and figure out what that something is. Dottie felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. I've given him almost $300,000, Tom, over 7 years. For Emma's college fund, he said. For the trust fund Sarah's daddy left her. What if he's been one step at a time? Tom put a hand on her shoulder. First, we verify the death certificate. Then we see if there's an actual cremation record. If both of those check out, but this urn's full of Folgers, then we start asking harder questions. And if they don't check out? Tom's jaw tightened. Then we find out where your daughter is. The words hung in the air between them. Where your daughter is, not was, is, present tense, alive. The possibility was too big to hold, too terrifying to hope for. Because if Sarah was alive somewhere, that meant for 7 years Dottie had been mourning a ghost, talking to an urn full of grocery store coffee, paying a man who might have... I need some air, Dottie said abruptly, heading for the porch. Tom followed her out. The rain had stopped, leaving everything smelling like wet cedar and earth. Down the street, the bakery's windows were dark. Across town, the church bell tower was just visible against the night sky. Willow Creek, population 4,200. The kind of place where everybody knew everybody's business, except nobody had known this. Tom? Dottie's voice was small. If she's alive, why wouldn't she come home? It was the question that scared her most, because there were only a few answers, and all of them were terrible. Tom didn't sugarcoat it. Either she can't or she doesn't want to, and if it's the first one... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. If Sarah couldn't come home, someone was stopping her, and the most likely someone had been sleeping in Dottie's daughter's bed, raising her granddaughter, and cashing her checks for 7 years. What do I do? Dottie asked. About Emma? About Kyle? Do I confront him? Do I... No. Tom's voice was firm. You don't do anything. Not yet. If Kyle's involved in something, the last thing we want is to tip him off before we have proof. You keep acting normal. You take care of Emma, and you let me handle the investigating. I don't know if I can look at him without... You can. Tom squeezed her shoulder. Because if there's even a chance Sarah's out there, you're going to do whatever it takes to bring her home, right? Dottie thought of Sarah at 5 years old, laughing as she helped make her first pie crust. Sarah at 16, rolling her eyes when Dottie fussed over her prom dress. Sarah at 25, placing Dottie's hand on her pregnant belly to feel Emma kick. Mom, you're going to be the best grandma ever. Right, Dottie said. Her voice was steel. Whatever it takes. The next morning, Dottie opened the bakery at 6 a.m. like always. She mixed dough, she greeted customers, she smiled and chatted and acted like her world hadn't tilted on its axis. And when Kyle came by at 8:30 to pick up Emma, Dottie hugged him and thanked him for being such a good father. She didn't look at the urn as she said it. She was afraid of what she might do if she did. Tom called Dottie at 10:47 a.m. the next morning while she was elbow deep in pie dough. She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped into the back room before answering. What'd you find? Death certificate's legit. On file with Clackamas County. Signed by Dr. Alan Pierce, dated March 12, 2018. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head, accidental fall downstairs. Tom's voice was all business. But here's the thing. I called Pierce down in Medford. Dottie's heart hammered. And? He remembers signing it. Says Kyle brought Sarah's body to his private practice. Pierce used to do house calls for families who wanted to avoid the hospital. He examined the body, confirmed she'd passed, signed the paperwork. Everything by the book. So she really is dead. The words tasted like ash in Dottie's mouth. Hold on, I'm not done. Pierce said Kyle told him the family wanted a quick, quiet cremation. Pierce referred him to Sunset Memorial Crematorium in Portland. So I called them. Dottie held her breath. Dottie, there's no record of Sarah Henderson Abbott ever being cremated there, or at any other crematorium in Oregon. I checked every single one within 100 miles. The room spun. Dottie gripped the counter. What does that mean? It means either Kyle lied about the cremation, or he used an off-the-books facility, which is illegal as hell. Either way, Tom paused. Either way, we need to know what happened to your daughter's body. Body. The word was wrong. All wrong. Tom, if there's a death certificate but no cremation, then where? That's what we're going to find out. Listen, I'm coming by the bakery in an hour. There's someone I want you to meet. The someone was Evelyn Moore, owner of Peaceful Rest Funeral Home on Oak Street. Dottie knew her from church, a tall, elegant black woman in her 60s who always wore pearls and spoke in hushed, comforting tones. But today, sitting across from Dottie in the bakery's back room with a cup of coffee going cold in her hands, Evelyn looked troubled. Dottie, I'm so sorry to dredge this up, Evelyn began. But when Tom called me this morning, I pulled my records from 2018. She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a contract, signed by Kyle Abbott, dated March 13, 2018, one day after Sarah's supposed death. Kyle contacted me about arranging Sarah's funeral. We discussed a viewing, cremation, the works. He put down a deposit, $5,000. Evelyn's finger traced down the document. But 3 days later, he called and canceled everything. Said the family had decided to use a different funeral home in Portland. Said you wanted something bigger, fancier. I never said that, Dottie whispered. I don't even remember him asking me. That's because you were sedated to high heaven, Tom interjected. I checked with Doc Stevens. She had you on enough Xanax to knock out a horse for nearly 2 weeks after Sarah's death. Evelyn continued. Kyle asked for his deposit back. I refunded it, minus the cancellation fee. He seemed rushed, anxious to close the whole thing out. At the time, I figured he was just grieving in his own way. Some people want to handle everything themselves, you know? Did he say which Portland funeral home? Evergreen Memorial. I called them this morning before coming here. Evelyn's voice dropped. They have no record of Sarah Henderson Abbott. Never heard of her. The three of them sat in silence. Finally, Dottie spoke. So we've got a death certificate, but no body. A cremation urn, but no ashes. A funeral that never happened. And a man who's been taking $40,000 a year from me for 7 years. Her voice hardened. What's that add up to, Tom? Fraud at minimum. Possibly more. Tom leaned forward. But here's what's bugging me. Why go through all this trouble? If Kyle wanted Sarah's life insurance or her inheritance, there are easier ways to fake a death. This is elaborate. Risky. You don't do something like this unless what? Tom met her eyes. Unless the person you're hiding from is still alive and needs to stay hidden. The possibility hung in the air like smoke. You think Sarah's alive? It wasn't a question. I think we can't rule it out. And if she is, we need to find her before Kyle realizes we're on to him. For the next week, Dottie lived a double life. By day, she was the friendly baker who smiled at customers and remembered everyone's orders. She made small talk with Margaret Walsh about the weather. She let Emma help frost cupcakes after school. She even invited Kyle over for Sunday dinner and listened to him talk about his new promotion at the insurance company. Things are really looking up, Dottie. I'm thinking about getting Emma that art camp she wanted, the one in Seattle this summer. It's pricey, but with the college fund growing like it is. Dottie had smiled and passed him the mashed potatoes and didn't say a word about how she'd stopped the wire transfer this month, how her bank was now flagging her account for suspicious activity review. Kyle hadn't noticed yet. Too confident. Too comfortable. By night, Dottie sat in Tom's truck parked 3 blocks from Kyle's modest split level on Maple Drive, watching. Waiting. This is crazy, she muttered on the 4th night. We're acting like he's some kind of criminal mastermind. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe… There. Tom cut her off, pointing. Friday night, 8 p.m., like clockwork. Kyle's silver Honda pulled out of his driveway. Emma wasn't with him. She was sleeping over at a friend's house, according to the text Dottie had received earlier. Where does he go on Friday nights? Dottie asked. That's what we're about to find out. They followed Kyle through downtown Willow Creek, past the library and the old movie theater, until he turned onto Industrial Way, a street lined with storage facilities and abandoned warehouses. Kyle's car slowed in front of U-Store It, a sprawling complex of orange metal units behind a chain-link fence. He punched in a code at the gate and drove through. Tom parked down the street, killed the engine. How much you want to bet he's not storing Christmas decorations in there? Dottie's pulse thundered in her ears. We need to get closer. Dottie, we can't just… But she was already out of the truck, walking toward the fence with more determination than sense. Tom swore under his breath and followed. The facility was poorly lit, casting long shadows between the rows of units. Through the fence, they could see Kyle park in front of Unit 47, near the back corner. He got out, carrying a plastic grocery bag, and unlocked the unit's roll-up door. But he didn't go inside. He knocked, 3 times, and someone knocked back from inside. Dottie's knees nearly buckled. Tom grabbed her elbow to steady her. Holy shit, he breathed. Kyle slipped inside the unit. The door rolled down behind him. There's someone in there, Dottie whispered. There's someone living in there. We don't know that for sure. Could be. Don't. Dottie's voice was sharp. Don't you dare tell me it could be something innocent. My daughter's body is missing. My son-in-law's been lying to me for 7 years, and now he's visiting a storage unit where someone's clearly being kept. You do the math, Tom. Tom pulled out his phone. I'm calling for backup. No, not yet. Dottie, if you call your deputies now, what happens? Kyle lawyers up. Whoever's in there disappears. We need to know. She looked at Tom with eyes that had cried themselves dry over the past week. I need to know. Tom was quiet for a long moment. Then he pocketed his phone. Okay, but we do this smart. We wait until he leaves, then we find a way in. And if things go sideways, they won't. If they do, Tom insisted, you run. You call 911. You don't play hero. Understood? Dottie nodded, even though they both knew she was lying. Kyle stayed inside for 37 minutes. Dottie counted every second. When he finally emerged, he was empty-handed. The grocery bag was gone. He locked the unit carefully, tested the lock twice, and drove away without looking back. They waited 10 more minutes to be sure he wasn't coming back. All right, Tom said. I'm going to see if I can pop this lock. You keep watch. Like hell. I'm going in with you. Dottie, she's my daughter, Tom. The certainty in her voice stopped his argument cold. Because it was certainty now. Not hope, not theory. Dottie knew. The way a mother knows. Tom worked the lock with a tension wrench and pick he kept in his truck for emergencies. It took him less than 3 minutes. The cheap master lock clicked open like it wanted to give up its secrets. Tom rolled up the door slowly. The screech of metal on metal sounded deafening in the quiet night. Inside was darkness. Tom clicked on his flashlight. The beam swept across the interior of Unit 47. It was larger than expected, maybe 10 by 15 feet. Against one wall was a camping cot with rumpled blankets. A mini fridge hummed in the corner. Next to it, a hot plate and a stack of plastic containers. A bucket with a lid that Dottie didn't want to think about. A battery-powered lamp on an upturned crate. And huddled in the far corner, wrapped in a threadbare sleeping bag, was a woman. She didn't run, didn't scream, just stared at them with wide, hollow eyes. The flashlight beam found her face. Dottie's world stopped. She had Sarah's nose, Sarah's cheekbones, Sarah's chin. But this woman was 40 pounds lighter than Sarah had been. Her blonde hair was streaked with gray and cut choppy and short, like someone had done it with kitchen scissors. Her skin was pale, almost translucent. Dark circles ringed her eyes. She looked like Sarah would look if Sarah had spent 7 years in hell. "Mom?" The word was so quiet Dottie almost didn't hear it. But she did. And the part of her that had been dying slowly for 7 years suddenly, violently, came back to life. "Sarah," it came out as a sob. "Oh my God, Sarah." Dottie stumbled forward and Sarah flinched, actually flinched away from her. That stopped Dottie cold. "Baby," she whispered. "It's me. It's Mom. You're safe now. You can't be here." Sarah's voice was hoarse, rusty from disuse. He'll know you came and he'll—" "Who? Kyle?" Tom stepped forward, hands raised non-threateningly. "Sarah, I'm Sheriff Tom Bailey. You probably don't remember me, but I was friends with your dad. We're here to help you." Sarah shook her head frantically. "You don't understand. I can't leave. If I leave, they'll arrest me. I killed someone. Who did you kill, honey?" Dottie's voice was gentle, but her mind was racing. This was wrong. All of this was wrong. "Dr. Pierce, I don't remember it, but Kyle showed me. He showed me the video. I was sedated and I woke up and I had his blood on my hands and—" Sarah was hyperventilating now. "Emma, I can't let Emma know what I did. I can't—" "Dr. Pierce is alive," Tom said firmly. "I talked to him yesterday. He's retired in Medford, playing golf and annoying his wife. Whoever told you killed him was lying." Sarah stopped mid-breath. "What?" "He's alive, baby." Dottie moved closer, slower this time. "You didn't kill anyone. Kyle lied to you. Do you understand? He lied." "But the video—" "Fake. It had to be." Tom crouched down to Sarah's eye level. "Sarah, how long have you been in here?" I don't know anymore. Years. He brings me food every Friday. Sometimes he—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Sometimes Jessica comes too." Dottie and Tom exchanged glances. "Jessica Parks?" Tom asked. "Your friend from college?" Sarah nodded. "She was there, the night I fell. She helped Kyle. She said she was sorry, but I'd understand someday. That they were protecting me. Protecting Emma." Dottie's hands clenched into fists. Jessica. Sweet, quiet Jessica who'd sent a sympathy card after Sarah's death. Who'd donated to Emma's college fund. Who worked at the hospital and probably had access to drugs, medical equipment, everything you'd need to fake a death and keep someone sedated. "We're getting you out of here," Dottie said. "Right now." "I can't." Sarah's voice broke. "I can't face Emma. Not after what I did. Not after—" "You didn't do anything!" Dottie said fiercely. She grabbed Sarah's hands, so thin, so fragile, and held tight. "You're the victim here. You've been locked in a goddamn storage unit for 7 years by a man who convinced you were a murderer so you'd stay quiet while he stole your life, your money, and your daughter. You didn't do anything wrong." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "Emma thinks I'm dead. Then let's go tell her she's wrong." They wrapped Sarah in Tom's jacket and helped her to the truck. She could barely walk, her muscles atrophied from years of limited movement. She leaned heavily on Dottie, and Dottie held her like she'd never let go again. In the truck's overhead light, Dottie could see more details. Scars on Sarah's wrists where she'd tried to hurt herself. A fading bruise on her collarbone. Fingernails bitten down to nothing. "How did this happen?" Dottie whispered. "How did we not know?" Sarah's voice was small. "He was smart about it. The first year he kept me sedated most of the time. Jessica would come with IV bags, medicine. She's a nurse, so she knew how to keep me alive, but quiet. When I finally came off the drugs, I was so confused. My memory was all scrambled, and the video—" "What video?" Tom asked, starting the engine. "The surveillance footage from Dr. Pierce's office. It showed me holding surgical scissors, standing over his body. There was so much blood, and Kyle said I'd done it during a psychotic break after my fall, that Dr. Pierce had been trying to sedate me and I'd fought back. Killed him." Sarah's voice cracked. "I believed it because I couldn't remember. The head injury made everything fuzzy, and Kyle said if I turned myself in, I'd go to prison for life. Emma would grow up knowing her mother was a murderer. So you stayed, Dottie said quietly. I stayed. For Emma, Kyle said after enough time passed. After she was grown, maybe there'd be some way to make it right. But years went by and nothing changed. I just stayed in that unit, week after week, month after month. Sometimes Kyle would bring me Emma's school photos, tell me how she was doing, that she missed me but she was okay. A sob escaped Sarah's throat. I missed her entire childhood from inside a storage locker. Tom's jaw was so tight Dottie could hear his teeth grinding. Did he ever hurt you? Physically? Not really. He'd get angry sometimes if I asked too many questions. Once he didn't bring food for 2 weeks because I begged to see Emma. But mostly he was careful, like he knew exactly how far he could push before I'd break completely. And Jessica? She stopped coming about 3 years ago. Kyle said she'd moved to Seattle, wanted to start over. I thought maybe she felt guilty. Sarah looked at Dottie. Did she really stay in Willow Creek? Never left, Tom confirmed. Still works at the hospital. Then why did she stop visiting me? That was the question, wasn't it? Dottie filed it away for later. They pulled up to Tom's house instead of Dottie's. Safer, in case Kyle drove by and saw activity. Tom's wife Nancy, a sturdy woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude, took one look at Sarah and immediately switched into emergency mode. Guest room's ready. I'll run a bath. Tom, you got clean clothes that might fit her? While Nancy helped Sarah upstairs, Tom pulled Dottie aside. I need to call this in, now. This is kidnapping, fraud, about a dozen other charges. We need to— 1 hour, Dottie interrupted. Give me 1 hour with her, please. Tom hesitated, then nodded. 1 hour, then I'm making the call. And Dottie, we need to pick up Emma. If Kyle realizes Sarah's gone, he won't check the unit until Friday. We have time. You hope we have time. This guy's been running a con for 7 years. He's not stupid. Dottie knew Tom was right. But right now, all she could think about was her daughter upstairs, taking her first real bath in God knew how long, and how she'd lost 7 years she could never get back. She climbed the stairs to the guest room. Through the door, she could hear water running and Nancy's soothing voice. When Nancy emerged, she pulled Dottie close and whispered, She's real thin, hun. And those scars on her arms, she's gonna need professional help. I know. But she's alive. That's what matters. That's what matters, Dottie echoed. She knocked softly on the bathroom door. Sarah, it's Mom. Can I come in? A pause. Then, yeah. Sarah sat in the bathtub, knees pulled to her chest, water cloudy with dirt and grime. Her hair was wet and starting to curl the way it used to when she was young. For just a moment, Dottie could see her daughter at 8 years old, covered in mud from playing in the creek. I look awful, Sarah said quietly. You look alive. Dottie sat on the closed toilet lid. That's all I care about. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Sarah spoke, her voice barely audible over the water. I used to talk to you, in my head, every day. I'd imagine you in the bakery, making pies. I'd remember the smell of cherry filling and butter crust. It kept me sane. She looked at Dottie with red-rimmed eyes. Did you think about me? Dottie's throat closed up. Every single day. I had your urn on the mantel. I'd talk to it. Tell you about Emma, about the bakery. I felt crazy, but Kyle said it would help you rest. He gave you my ashes? Coffee grounds and cinnamon, actually. Dottie laughed, but it came out broken. Emma figured it out. Smart kid, brave as hell. She's the one who started this whole thing. Sarah's face crumpled. I want to see her. God, I want to see her so badly. But I don't know if I can. What do I even say? Sorry I've been dead for 7 years, honey? She probably doesn't even remember me. She remembers. She has a photo of you by her bed. Talks about you all the time. Sarah. Dottie leaned forward. That girl has been waiting for you every day for 7 years. And now you're here. You're alive. That's all that's going to matter to her. What if she hates me for staying away? She won't. What if she's scared of me? I look like she won't be. Dottie reached out and took Sarah's hand. Because she's your daughter. And she loves you. The way I love you. The way we never stopped loving you. Even when we thought you were gone. Sarah broke then. Really broke. She sobbed into her hands, 7 years of grief and trauma and isolation pouring out of her. And Dottie held her daughter, her living, breathing, broken but alive daughter, and finally let herself cry too. Downstairs, Tom was already on the phone with the county prosecutor. The wheels of justice were starting to turn, and Kyle Abbott had no idea what was coming for him. Kyle Abbott was arrested at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning while loading his briefcase into his Honda. Dottie watched from Tom's truck, parked 2 houses down. She'd insisted on being there, and Tom hadn't fought her on it. Some things you needed to see with your own eyes. 2 deputies flanked Kyle while Tom read him his rights. Kyle's face went from confused to shocked to calculatingly blank in the span of 10 seconds. "This is a mistake," Kyle said smoothly. His voice was calm, too calm. "Whatever you think I've done, kidnapping, fraud, forgery, theft, and about 8 other charges I'm still working through with the DA." Tom's voice was granite. "You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it." Kyle's eyes darted to his house. "Where's Emma? I need to talk to Emma." "Emma's safe. That's all you need to know." They cuffed him, walked him to the cruiser. Kyle didn't struggle, didn't protest. He just looked inconvenienced, like this was a scheduling conflict, not the end of his world. As the cruiser pulled away, Dottie felt a hand slip into hers. Emma stood beside her, Nancy on her other side. The girl had insisted on coming, and Dottie hadn't had the heart to say no. "Is he going to jail?" Emma's voice was small. "Yeah, baby, he is." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Good." Jessica Parks sat across from Dottie and Tom in the interrogation room, her hands shaking around a styrofoam cup of coffee. She looked 10 years older than her 36 years. "I didn't know," she said for the 3rd time. "I swear to God, I didn't know he was keeping her in that storage unit." "But you knew something," Tom pressed. "You helped him fake Sarah's death. You're a nurse. You had access to sedatives, medical equipment. Don't sit there and tell me you're innocent." Jessica's face crumpled. "I'm not innocent. I know that. But I'm not what you think I am." Dottie leaned forward. "Then tell us what you are, Jessica, because right now, all I see is the woman who helped steal my daughter's life." Jessica flinched. She set down the coffee and pressed her palms against her eyes. "Kyle and we dated in college, before he met Sarah. He was my first everything. First boyfriend, first love. First time I thought maybe I'd found someone who actually saw me." She laughed bitterly. "I was so stupid." "What happened?" Dottie's voice was hard. "He dumped me sophomore year. Said I was too needy, too clingy. Then a month later I saw him at a party with Sarah. Beautiful, confident Sarah who came from money and had her whole life figured out. And I hated her." Jessica's voice broke. "God, I hated her for having everything I wanted." Tom made a note. "So when Kyle came to you in 2018, he called me out of nowhere. Said Sarah had an accident, that she was hurt bad. He needed my help as a nurse. I thought," Jessica wiped her eyes, "I thought maybe he still cared about me. That this was his way of reaching out. So I went to his house, and Sarah was unconscious at the bottom of the stairs, bleeding from her head. I wanted to call 911, but Kyle said no, said she'd been drinking and fell, and if the hospital ran a tox screen, CPS might take Emma. He begged me to help him handle it quietly. Dr. Pierce was a friend of his. He'd do the exam, make sure Sarah was okay without involving authorities." Dottie's hands clenched. "And you believed him?" "I wanted to believe him. There's a difference." Jessica's voice was hollow. "Pierce came, examined Sarah, gave her something for the pain, said she'd be fine, just needed rest. And then Kyle asked me to do something." "What?" "He said Sarah had a drug problem, that she'd been stealing pills from his medicine cabinet and he was worried about her mental state. He wanted me to keep her sedated for a few days, just until she could detox safely at home. He said it was for Emma's sake, that if Sarah woke up and got violent, she could hurt the kid." Tom's pen stilled. "And you did it. For 3 weeks. I'd come over after my shifts, check her vitals, adjust the IV. Kyle said she was getting better, that soon she'd wake up and we'd get her into rehab. I believed him because..." Jessica's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because he told me he'd made a mistake, marrying Sarah, that he should have been with me all along, and I was stupid enough to think that maybe, finally, I'd get my chance." Dottie felt sick. What happened after 3 weeks? Sarah woke up. I was there. She was confused, disoriented, kept asking about Emma. And Kyle, he showed her something on his phone, a video. Sarah started screaming, saying she'd killed someone. Kyle held her, told her it was okay, that he'd protect her, that I'd protect her too. Jessica looked at Dottie with hollow eyes. He said we'd take care of Sarah together, like a family, the 3 of us. But that's not what happened. No, Kyle said Sarah needed somewhere quiet to recover, somewhere she wouldn't hurt herself or Emma. He found the storage unit, said it was temporary, just until Sarah was stable. I helped move her there, brought her food, medicine, blankets. Kyle said, she laughed bitterly. He said once Sarah got better, we'd tell everyone she'd been in rehab, that she'd come home and we'd all move forward. How long did you believe that? Tom asked. About 6 months. Then Kyle started getting distant, stopped inviting me over, said Sarah was making progress but needed less stimulation. He'd handle the visits himself. Jessica's hands trembled. I asked to see her. He said no. I pushed. He got angry, really angry. Told me I'd been an accessory to kidnapping and if I said anything, I'd go to prison right alongside him. So you kept quiet, Dottie said flatly. I kept quiet, and I hated myself for it. Every single day. I thought about going to the police 1,000 times, but I was scared, and I told myself that maybe Sarah really was better off, that maybe Kyle was actually taking care of her, that maybe... Jessica broke down completely. I'm so sorry, Dottie. I know sorry doesn't fix anything. I know I'm a coward, but I never wanted this. I never wanted any of this. Tom and Dottie exchanged glances. Jessica, Tom said carefully, did Kyle ever mention Sarah's trust fund, her inheritance? Jessica's head snapped up. What trust fund? Sarah's father left her $2 million. Kyle's been managing it since her death. The color drained from Jessica's face. I didn't know. He never said anything about money. He just said... She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against linoleum. Oh my God. He used me. This whole time, he used me to get to her money. It was never about me at all. And in that moment, Dottie almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Richard Caldwell cracked faster than anyone expected. The attorney sat in Tom's office with his own lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman from Portland who kept trying to get him to shut up. But Caldwell was 60 years old and facing potential disbarment and prison time. He talked. Kyle approached me about 18 months after Sarah's death, Caldwell said, his voice shaking. Said he needed help accessing Sarah's trust fund for Emma's future. The fund required both parents' signatures for any withdrawal over $10,000. With Sarah gone, you forged the documents, Tom finished. Kyle brought me death certificates, cremation records, probate paperwork. Everything looked legitimate. I filed the necessary petitions with the court. Got Kyle appointed as Emma's guardian with full financial control until she turned 25. Caldwell loosened his tie. I took a standard 15% fee for estate management. I thought it was all above board. 15% of how much? Over 7 years? Kyle withdrew roughly $1.4 million from the trust. My fee came to about $200,000. Dottie nearly lunged across the desk. Tom caught her arm. You took $200,000 and never once questioned whether the paperwork was legitimate? I had no reason to question it. Kyle was family. He'd been married to Sarah for a decade. Dr. Pierce signed the death certificate. Everything was... Dr. Pierce never signed a death certificate for Sarah Henderson Abbott, Tom interrupted. He signed one for a different patient and Kyle doctored it. We confirmed it this morning. Caldwell went gray. That's not possible. You saw what you wanted to see. Because you were getting paid. Tom leaned forward. Here's what I think happened. I think Kyle came to you with a plan. Fake Sarah's death, access the trust fund, split the money. You helped him forge the documents, file the fraudulent probate petition, and funnel money out of Emma's college fund. You're not a dupe, Caldwell. You're a co-conspirator. No, I would never. Then explain this. Tom slid a bank statement across the desk. 3 years ago, Kyle transferred $50,000 into an offshore account in your name. Estate management bonus, the memo says. You want to tell me that's standard practice? Caldwell stared at the statement. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. He ignored her. I didn't know Sarah was alive, he said finally. You have to believe that. If I'd known Kyle was keeping her imprisoned somewhere, I would have what? Reported him? Or asked for a bigger cut? Caldwell had no answer. The prosecution built their case over 3 months. During that time, Sarah lived with Dottie, attended therapy twice a week, and slowly started to remember what it felt like to be a person instead of a prisoner. And Emma? Emma drew. She'd always been artistic, but now she filled sketchbook after sketchbook with images Dottie didn't see until the day Tom came to the house looking grim. "We need Emma to testify," he said. "Kyle's lawyers are claiming Sarah went willingly into that storage unit, that she had psychotic episodes and Kyle was protecting her from herself. They're painting him as a devoted husband who made hard choices." "That's bullshit," Sarah said. She'd gotten some weight back, some color in her face, but she still flinched at loud noises and couldn't sleep without a light on. "I know it is, but we need proof. And Emma," Tom hesitated. "Emma might have it." Dottie found her granddaughter in her bedroom, surrounded by spiral notebooks and loose paper. Emma looked up when Dottie knocked. "Sheriff Bailey says you have something that could help put your dad away," Dottie said gently. Emma nodded slowly. She picked up a thick binder from her desk and handed it to Dottie. "I started drawing them when I was 10, Emma said quietly. "After I found out." "Found out what, baby?" "That Mom was alive." The world tilted. You knew?" "I followed Dad one night to the storage place. I saw him bring her food." Emma's voice was barely audible. "I wanted to tell someone, but Dad found out I'd been there. He said if I told anyone, they'd take Mom away forever. That she'd done something bad and he was the only thing protecting her from prison. He said if I really loved her, I'd stay quiet." Dottie opened the binder with shaking hands. Inside were hundreds of drawings. Detailed, precise, dated drawings. Sarah sitting on a cot. Sarah staring out a crack in the storage unit door. Sarah's hands pressed against the metal wall. Kyle bringing bags of food. Kyle counting money in what looked like Caldwell's office. Jessica helping Sarah into a car. Each drawing was labeled with a date and time. 4 years' worth of documentation. "You were 10 years old," Dottie whispered. "I couldn't save her, but I could remember." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I thought if I drew it all down, maybe someday someone would believe me. Maybe someday I'd be brave enough to show someone." Dottie pulled her granddaughter into her arms. "You're the bravest person I know." The courtroom was packed. Kyle sat at the defense table in a suit that probably cost more than Dottie made in a month. He looked calm, collected, like a man confident in his innocence. Sarah sat 3 rows back with Dottie and Tom. She wore a simple blue dress and her hair pulled back. She looked fragile, breakable. But when the prosecutor called Emma to the stand, Sarah sat up straight. Emma walked to the witness box in her school uniform, carrying the binder. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Reeves, watched her carefully. "Miss Abbott," the prosecutor began gently, "can you tell the court what's in that binder?" Emma's voice shook at first, but grew stronger as she spoke. "Drawings. Of my mom. I started making them 4 years ago when I found out she was alive." The courtroom erupted. Judge Reeves slammed her gavel. "Order!" The prosecutor approached Emma. "Can you explain how you knew your mother was alive when everyone else believed she was dead?" "I followed my dad to U Store at one Friday night. I saw him bring her food. I saw her through the door." "And you didn't tell anyone?" "Dad found out I'd been there. He said—" Emma's voice cracked. She looked at Kyle. He stared back, expressionless. "He said Mom had killed someone, that if anyone found out she was alive, she'd go to prison and I'd never see her again. He said he was protecting her, that I had to keep the secret to protect her too." "So you kept the secret?" "Yes, but I drew pictures of everything I saw, every time Dad went to visit her, every time—" Emma wiped her eyes. "Every time I couldn't sleep because I missed my mom, I'd draw her, so I wouldn't forget what she looked like." The prosecutor entered the binder into evidence. Page after page of Emma's drawings was projected onto screens for the jury. A mother and daughter separated by a metal door. A little girl watching through a fence. A man counting money while a woman sat in darkness. By the time the prosecutor finished, half the jury was crying. Kyle's lawyer tried to discredit Emma on cross-examination, suggested she'd been coached, that the drawings were exaggerated. that a child couldn't be a reliable witness. But Emma didn't budge. "I know what I saw," she said firmly. "And I know my dad lied. To me, to Grandma, to everyone. Mom didn't kill anyone. She didn't choose to live in that place. He put her there, and he kept her there, for money." When Emma stepped down, she walked straight to Sarah and climbed into her lap. Sarah held her and cried into her daughter's hair. And Kyle Abbott finally looked afraid. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Kyle Abbott, guilty on all counts, 25 years minimum. Richard Caldwell, guilty of fraud and conspiracy, 10 years plus full restitution. Jessica Parks took a plea deal, 5 years probation, permanent loss of nursing license, mandatory testimony against Kyle. The DA agreed she'd been manipulated, but she'd still facilitated a crime. She'd have to live with that. When they read Kyle's sentence, he finally showed emotion, not remorse, anger. "This is bullshit," he shouted as they led him away. "I took care of her. I kept her safe. If I'd let her go, she would have—" The rest was drowned out by the gavel and the bailiff's orders. Sarah didn't watch him go. She kept her eyes on Emma. "Is it really over?" Emma whispered. "It's over," Sarah said. But of course it wasn't. Not really. Trauma doesn't end with a verdict. 1 year later, Sarah had gained back most of the weight she'd lost. She'd cut her hair properly, a neat bob that framed her face. She'd started teaching accounting at the community college 2 days a week. Small steps, baby steps. Emma was thriving in art therapy and had won a regional competition for her piece titled The Girl Who Kept Secrets. She'd been accepted to a summer arts program in Portland. And Dottie had sold the bakery. At 69, she decided she'd needed enough dough for one lifetime. She spent her days gardening, volunteering at the library, and having dinner with Sarah and Emma twice a week. But there was one last thing she needed to do. On a sunny Saturday in April, the three of them drove to the banks of the Willamette River. Sarah carried a picnic basket. Emma carried a blanket. Dottie carried the copper urn. They found a quiet spot away from the hiking trails and spread out the blanket. Dottie unpacked the picnic. Cherry pie, of course, along with sandwiches and lemonade. They ate in comfortable silence, watching the river flow past. Finally, Emma spoke. "What are we going to do with it?" Dottie looked at the urn. It had sat on her mantel for 7 years, holding coffee and lies. It had represented her deepest grief and her greatest deception. Sarah reached over and took it from Dottie's hands. She unscrewed the lid and dumped out the remaining contents. Stale coffee grounds and old cinnamon scattered on the grass. Then she pulled a Ziploc bag from the picnic basket. Inside were dried cherry blossoms from the tree in Dottie's backyard. "I thought we could fill it with something beautiful," Sarah said softly. "Something that reminds us we survived." Together they filled the urn with pink petals. Emma added a small drawing she'd made, the three of them holding hands. Sarah screwed the lid back on and stood. Dottie and Emma joined her at the river's edge. "Should we say something?" Emma asked. Dottie thought for a moment. "How about this? We're letting go of what was. We're keeping what is. And we're looking forward to what will be." "That's good, Grandma." Sarah held the urn out over the water. "On 3?" "On 3, Dottie agreed. 1, 2, 3. They released it together. The urn hit the water with a splash, bobbed on the surface for a moment, then began to float downstream. Cherry blossom petals leaked from the seams, creating a pink trail on the current. They watched until it disappeared around the river bend. "You think it'll make it to the ocean?" Emma asked. "Maybe," Sarah said. "Or maybe it'll get caught on a sandbar somewhere. But either way, it's not ours anymore." Dottie put her arms around both of them. "You know what I realized?" "What?" "I spent 7 years talking to a jar full of coffee grounds, thinking I was talking to you," Dottie said to Sarah. "But you were alive the whole time. And now you're here. Really here. And I don't need urns or rituals or anything except this. Right here, right now." Sarah leaned her head on Dottie's shoulder. "I missed so much." "You didn't miss it. It was stolen from you. There's a difference." "I know, but I still wish I could get it back. Those 7 years. "Can't go back," Dottie said gently. "Can only go forward." Emma pointed to the sky where a pair of hawks circled lazily in the updrafts. "Mom, look. Remember when I was little and you'd take me to the park and we'd watch for hawks?" Sarah smiled. A real smile, the kind Dottie hadn't seen in years. You used to call them sky kitties. I was 5. You were adorable. They packed up the picnic and walked back to the car, arms linked. Behind them, the river flowed on, carrying away the last physical reminder of the lie that had nearly destroyed them. But scars remained. Sarah still woke from nightmares. Emma still struggled with trust. Dottie still felt a surge of protective rage whenever she thought about Kyle Abbott serving his 25 years. Healing wasn't linear. It wasn't complete. It was messy and complicated, and some days 2 steps forward meant 3 steps back. But they had each other. And for now, that was enough. 3 years later, Dottie stood in the back of the community center auditorium, watching Emma accept her high school diploma. The girl was 18 now, heading to art school in the fall on a full scholarship. Sarah sat in the front row, cheering louder than anyone else. She'd been fully certified to teach accounting and had even started dating someone, a kind man named Paul, who worked at the hardware store and knew better than to ask too many questions about the past. After the ceremony, they gathered in the parking lot for photos. "Grandma, stop crying," Emma laughed. "You're going to make me cry." "Can't help it. I'm proud of you, baby." "We both are," Sarah added, pulling Emma into a hug. "You've accomplished so much." Emma smiled. "We all have." Later at the celebratory dinner at Riverside Diner, Emma pulled out a large portfolio. "I have something for you guys, my final project for advanced art." She opened it to reveal a 3-panel painting. The first panel showed a woman in a bakery talking to an urn. Dark colors, heavy shadows. The second panel showed the same woman standing in a storage unit doorway, light flooding in. A thin figure reaching out from the darkness. The third panel showed 3 figures on a riverbank, releasing something into the water. Cherry blossoms, sunlight, hope. At the bottom, Emma had titled it, "The Women Who Survived." Dottie couldn't speak. Sarah's hand found hers across the table. "It's beautiful," Sarah finally managed. "It's us," Emma said simply. "What we went through. What we became." "What we became," Dottie echoed. And sitting there in the diner with her daughter and granddaughter, eating pie and laughing at Emma's college plans, Dottie realized something. Kyle Abbott had tried to steal 7 years of their lives, but he hadn't succeeded. Because every day after, every laugh, every hug, every ordinary moment was a victory. They'd survived, and they'd keep surviving, together.